Welcome to the Faroe's News Report. Our goal today is pretty straightforward. Give you a clear picture of what's happening politically, economically, and socially in the Faroe Islands, based purely on the sources we've received. We're going to cut through the noise, pull out the key facts, the surprising numbers, and, well, some pretty heated debates.
Exactly. We got a mix today. We'll start with some hard data, international stuff, and then dive right into some quite intense local arguments and opinions.
Okay, so here's a quick rundown of the headlines we'll be covering. First, the news segments. We've got the September employment statistics, the minister at the Nordic Council session talking autonomy, the Smearl ferry docking and some customs issues, and a question in Parliament about cancer screening.
And then we shift gears into the opinion and commentary segments. This includes things like whether the AL's unemployment payment is too high, debates on land sales in Tórshavn, some serious claims about the Suðuroy tunnel process, the constitutional status debate reaching Denmark, questions about data on foreign workers, more on Tórshavn housing, and finally an ethical piece called Quo Vadis Domine.
Right, let's kick off with the economy. Hagstofa, the Faroe Statistics Office, released the September 2025 employment numbers. What are the key takeaways?
Well, the main number is 30,084 people employed. That's up by 505 people from last year, which is a 1.7% increase. So, still growing.
But the sources do flag something important here, don't they? That this growth rate is actually slowing down.
That's right. It's visibly slowing, which, kind of frames some of the later discussions we'll have about money and household costs.
Definitely. Did any particular sectors stand out in the growth figures?
Yeah, actually. Agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. It had the biggest percentage jump among the main sectors, up 4.2%.
Yeah.
That's about 86 people, so not massive in absolute terms, but percentage-wise, it's notable.
Interesting. And the data also breaks down where people work, private versus public sector.
It does. Overall, it's 57% private, 43% public. But the gender split is really striking. 3 out of 4 men work in the private sector.
Wow. And for women?
2 out of 3 women work in the public sector. It's quite a pronounced difference. Shows maybe different job paths or historical structures.
Yeah, that's a significant statistic. Okay, let's switch focus now to the international stage and this idea of Faroe's autonomy. The Foreign Affairs Minister, Siri Stenberg, was at the Nordic Council in Stockholm.
Right. Her message seemed to be twofold. Nordic unity is strong, but the Faroes want to play an active role in shaping things, not just, going along. Standing together helps shape global changes, was the idea.
And there were some big cultural wins for the Faroes there too, right?
Huge wins. Von Beert Vang won the Literature Prize for Svart Orkidé, and for the first time ever, a Faroes film, Det siste paradis på jord, won the Nordic Film Prize. That's a big deal.
And the Prime Minister, Aksel V. Johannesson, he didn't miss the chance to highlight these.
Not at all. He apparently used his speech to say these wins really boost the Faroes' visibility, and he linked it back to this goal for the Faroes to stand on its own feet in the Nordic House.
That phrase, stand on its own feet, it seems to have more weight now, especially with the recent ruling about potential independent WTO membership.
Exactly. He specifically mentioned that ruling. And he basically said that the whole issue of Danish constitutional status shouldn't block Faroe's self-determination within the Nordic Council anymore. And crucially, he announced they're setting up a commission to revise the Helsinki Agreement. That's the core Nordic cooperation document. So a clear signal towards modernizing their status.
Okay, quite a shift now, from high-level diplomacy to something much more grounded, the ferry Smearl.
Yes, the main ferry. It just came back from a long 7-week docking period in Denmark. The head of Strand Friesland, the operator, said the work itself went well, quite intense, but well done.
But the return wasn't smooth sailing.
Not entirely. When it came back October 13th, during customs clearance, they found issues. Discrepancies between what was listed on the manifest for the crew and what was actually on board.
So consequences.
Oh, yes. Pretty serious ones. 14 crew members ended up with fines and fees. The total came to 102,000 DKK. That's quite a bit of money spread across 14 people.
Wow. And there was specific detail about the director himself.
Yeah, this was quite something. He publicly stated that he personally paid a fine. It was 3,789.660 DKK, apparently for some IKEA goods he'd bought that weren't properly declared. The goods themselves were worth about 7,500 DKK, plus the MOMS, their VAT.
So the boss paid a fine too. That's interesting accountability. And the company's response now?
They're putting in clear internal guidelines, basically trying to make sure this doesn't happen again next time the ship's away for work.
Yeah.
Whether it's big stuff or, well, IKEA stuff.
Understood. Okay, moving to health. There's a parliamentary question about cancer screening for men.
That's right. MP Johan Dahl submitted a written question to the Minister of Health. He's asking specifically about screening for the two most common cancers in men, colorectal, so bowel cancer, and prostate cancer.
And what information is he looking for?
He wants the basic facts for the Faroes. How many men get diagnosed each year, how many survive or are cured, and how many unfortunately die from these diseases.
And the point of the question is?
It leads directly to policy. He asks if the minister plans to bring in a screening program. And he points to Denmark, where their colorectal screening program has apparently led to a big drop in diagnoses, like 24% fewer men, 20% fewer women, and fewer deaths. So he's basically saying, look what they did. Are we going to do it too?
Okay, that sets up a clear question for the minister. Right, now we move into the territory where things get, well, pretty contentious. The opinion and commentary pieces, starting with the ALS Unemployment Fund.
Yes, MP Helgi Abrahamsen has come out swinging about the payment rate for the unemployment fund, ALS. He's pointing to the fund's massive reserves, over 1.5 billion DKK in equity, he says.
1.5 billion, how does that compare to what it's supposed to hold?
Well, according to him, that's more than 1.5 times the target amount. And his core argument is that the fund is incredibly robust. He claims it could handle 10% unemployment, which is huge for 4 years straight.
While the actual current rate is...
Tiny. Just 0.8%.
Yeah.
So he connects this massive surplus directly to what families are paying. He calculates that a household with 2 working people paid around 7,000 DKK too much in 2024 just to build up this equity.
7,000 DKK. That's nearly $1,000 US dollars. That's not insignificant for a household.
Exactly. And he notes the government is planning a small cut, 0.2% from January 1st. But he argues that only brings the supposed overpayment down to about 5,250 DKK for that same family. Still too much, in his view.
And his final point is about who should decide this.
Yes. He thinks the decision on the rate should come from the ALS board, which represents employers and employees, not from politicians in the government. It's about control and who benefits from this large fund.
A classic debate, then. Save for a rainy day versus give money back now. Especially, as you mentioned, with growth slowing. Next up, housing and land in Torshavn. Seems like a hot topic with different views.
Very different views. First, you have the mayor, Elseberg. She blames national government rules. These rules stop the municipality selling building plots at cost price if the market value is higher. And since Torshavn market prices are sky high.
It means the municipality can't sell land cheaply enough for average families to afford.
That's her argument. She says this forces income segregation in the city and wants more local flexibility on sales.
Okay, so that's one perspective. But there's a contrasting one.
Yes, from City Council member Trondur Sigurðsson. He directs his criticism at the current city coalition running Torshavn. He claims they basically wrecked a major development plan called Stortjörn, which the previous council had started specifically to create more plots.
And the result, according to him,
Virtually no plots available for families wanting to build. He argues this pushes people into expensive rentals or apartments, making the gap between property owners and others even wider.
So, same problem, lack of affordable housing options, but completely different diagnoses of who's to blame. National rules versus local political decisions.
Precisely. It's a really sharp disagreement on the cause.
Okay, sticking with major domestic issues, let's turn to the Suðuroy Tunnel. There are some quite serious allegations about how the decision for that was made, coming from Erling Eidsgaard.
Yeah, these are pretty explosive claims about the process. Eidsgaard alleges that the prime minister couldn't initially get support for the route he wanted, the Skarveins route. So the PM supposedly promised Parliament a proper investigation into an alternative Route 1 going west of Sandur, including Skúvoy, which was needed to get political backing.
Okay, a promise for an alternative study. What's the allegation about that study?
This is the core of it. Eidsgaard claims that instead of getting an independent body to do the study, the PM asked the tunnel company itself to do it. And that company apparently openly preferred the original Skarveins route.
Ah. So the accusation is a conflict of interest.
Essentially, yes. And Eidsgaard goes further. He alleges the study that came back was designed to kill the alternative route financially. How? By supposedly adding hundreds of millions in extra construction costs, and even including costs for a totally separate tunnel and road project over at Sandsli, which had nothing to do with the alternative route itself.
So inflating the cost of the alternative to make the original look better.
That's the claim. And the final piece, according to Eidsgard, is that Parliament was then shown this allegedly skewed analysis and given just 5 days to approve the original Skarvanes route.
If that's accurate, it suggests, well, manipulation of the process to get a desired outcome. Serious stuff.
Very serious implications for trust in government and how major infrastructure decisions are made, if the claims hold up.
Right. Let's move to our final segment, which covers broader political, economic, and ethical commentary. First, the constitutional status debate seems to be causing ripples.
It does. MP Annika Olsen talks about this working group, 5 political parties trying to update the Faroes' constitutional status. The aim, she says, is more self-respect, more equality internationally.
But one party isn't involved.
Correct. The Sambandsflokkeren, the Unionist Party, chose not to participate. And Olsen is criticizing one of their MPs, Anna Falkenberg.
Why? What's the criticism?
Olsen alleges Falkenberg took this internal Faroes disagreement to the Danish parliament, the Folketinget, and she claims Falkenberg used a degrading tone, suggesting these 5 Faroes parties secretly just want independence and basically tried to stir things up in Denmark to get them to interfere and stop the work.
So accusing them of trying to use Copenhagen to block a domestic Faroes political process.
That's the essence of the claim. It really highlights that delicate balance or sometimes tension between Tórshavn and Copenhagen, especially around sovereignty issues.
Okay. Next, there are questions about data integrity, specifically concerning Faroes working abroad.
Yes, this comes from Magni Skál, the chairman of Antares. His organization hired Deloitte in Denmark to study the economic impact of Faroes seafarers working internationally. Skál claims that when getting the data from the tax authority, it was routed through the Ministry of Finance, and he implies it might have been, well, tampered with there.
And he connects this to something the national broadcaster KVF reported?
Yes, he calls it a half-truth. He says KVF broadcast misleading figures about seafarer income based on data from tax. Apparently, the KVF report highlighted a few individuals earning over 1 million DKK in taxable income.
1 million DKK taxable income? That sounds incredibly high for a seafarer.
It is. And Skál explains why these figures were outliers. He says one specific shipping company, registered in the Bahamas, had an unusual setup where they paid the Faroes employees' tax bill by bumping up their gross salary. This artificially inflated their taxable income dramatically for those few individuals. Skál's complaint is that KVF ran with these headline numbers without explaining this context, creating a false picture of typical seafarer earnings.
So, an argument about misleading statistics and lack of context. Finally, we have an ethical commentary piece by Jens Avrana with the title, Quo Vadis Domine.
Right, where are you going, Lord? He uses this quote to talk about human rights being neglected. He gives 3 stark international examples: Christians being killed in Nigeria, potentially record-high executions in the U.S., and summary executions in Gaza. Really grim situations.
And then he brings it back home to the Faroes.
It's quite a pivot. He says while the Faroes feel safe from those kinds of atrocities, he argues that the unborn child is threatened domestically. He links this alleged threat to politicians failing to create good enough living conditions and support systems for parents and children in the Faroes. So, connecting global human rights issues to perceived failings in domestic social policy.
That's certainly a strong parallel to draw. Okay, so that covers the range of news reports and opinion pieces from our sources today. We've gone from economic stats showing slower growth through international recognition and autonomy pushes, down to very specific local issues like ferry customs, housing debates, and these serious allegations about tunnel decisions and data handling.
Yeah, the complexity isn't just in the individual stories, is it? It's how they connect the economy affects household pressures, which fuels debates about things like the ALS fund. The autonomy drive links to the constitutional status arguments, and underlying several pieces are these questions of trust and transparency. That really brings us to a key point emerging from all this. If you hear claims, like the ones about the Suðuroy tunnel process, suggesting data might have been manipulated for a major project,
Right.
how much does that potentially damage public confidence in other official figures? Whether it's the ALS fund surplus numbers or the economic data on foreign workers we just discussed. It raises that broader question about trust in the information itself.
That's definitely something to think about.
Like and subscribe to PalsFundamentals for more content like this. Sources linked below.